When this book was written in 1995, the entire world was not yet living in the cyberspace. The internet was relatively a new idea, and very few of us knew how big the part of our lives it would become. As the new millennium dawned, the strange thing began to happen. People everywhere were writing again, just as people did in 80s. When they took their quills out to write letters and diaries, the age of mind-numbing television viewing had been eclipsed by the age of chat rooms and emails. This wonderful evolutionary jump in civilization gave this little book that you're holding in your hand right now brand new life. All of a sudden, the fight of limited shelf space to the bookstore was not as important as the book's success. What became most important was the book's word of mouth buzz over the internet. Soon, people were emailing other people about this book, and the internet bookstores with infinite shelf space were selling copies as fast as Courier Press could print them. I began getting emails from readers as far as Taiwan and Japan, as close as to my computer screen. When we leave this world, we'll ask ourselves one question: what's different? What different? Because I was here, and to answer that question will be difference that we made. Okay, you have no personality. It's interaction. That each of us are having fixed personality is a myth. It's a self-limiting, and it denies our power to continuous creation. In our ongoing creation of who we are, nothing has greater impact on our process than the choice that we make between optimism and pessimism. There are no optimistic and pessimistic personalities. There are just only single individual choices for the optimistic and pessimistic thought. Charlie Chaplin once entered in Charlie Chaplin's lookalike contest in Monte Carlo, and judges awarded him third place. Personality is overrated. Who we are is up to us, and every moment the choices that we make for our thinking either motivate us or they do not. And although clear visualization of a goal of a good first step, a joyful, motivated, and life demands more. To live the life you want to live, action is required. As Shakespeare said, action is eloquence. And the psychologist and the author Dr. Nathaniel Burden has written, a goal without an action plan is a daydream. Motion creates the self. In my experience as a teacher, consultant, and a writer, I have accumulated 100 ways thinking that lead directly to motivation. In my work as a corporate trainer and public seminar leader, I've often read and researched many volumes of psychologists or philosophers' works to find a single sentence that in my seminar student can use. What I'm always looking for are the ways of thinking. So this is the book of ideas, my sole criterion in assembling these ideas was how useful are they. I've drawn on according to the feedback I've gotten from corporates and public seminar students to know which idea make lasting impression on the people and which don't. The ones that are in the book. Since the first printing in 1996, this little book was enjoyed as a success I never imagined. During the first 5 years of the sales that have been continued to strong every year, not the wood. I've seen emergence of the internet as the world's primary source of information. People have not only been buying this book on the internet, but they have been posting their reviews. What's wonderful about the internet bookstore is that they feature reviews by regular people, not just professional journalists who need to be witty, carnal, and clever to survive. Making the simple complicated is commonplace. Making the complicated simple or simply simple, that's creativity. 100 ways. Get started. 1. Get out to your deathbed. A number of years ago, when I was working with a psychotherapist driven Burden, she put me through her deathbed exercise. I was asked to really imagine myself lying on my own deathbed and fully realize that feeling that connected with the dying and saying goodbye. Then she asked me mentally invite the people to my life who were important to me and to visit my bedside. One at a time, as I visualized each friend and relative coming to visit me. I had to speak to them out loud. I had to say to them what I wanted them to know as I was dying. As I spoke to each person, I could feel my voice breaking. Somehow I couldn't help breaking down. My eyes were filled with tears. I experienced such a sense of loss. It was not my own life. I was morning. It was the love that I was losing. To be more exact, it was a communication of love that had never been there. During this difficult exercise, I really got to see how much I left out of my life, how many wonderful feelings I had about my children. For example, I'd never specifically expressed. During this final exercise, I really got to see how much I've left out of my life, how many wonderful feelings I had about my children. For example, I've never acceptably expressed. At the end of the exercise, I was an emotional mess. I had really rarely cried at that hard or in my life. But when those emotions cleared, the wonderful thing happened was I was clear. I knew what was really important and who really mattered to me. I understood the first time in George Patton meant when he said, "That can be more exciting than life." From that day on, I vowed not to leave anything to chance. I made up my mind never to leave anything unsaid. I wanted to live as I might die at the moment, and the entire experience altered that way. I've related to my people ever since, and the great point of the exercise wasn't lost on me. We don't have to wait until we are actually near the death to receive these benefits of being mortal. We can create the experiences anytime we want. A few years later, when my mother lay dying in the hospital under Tucson, I rushed to her side to hold her hand and repeat to her all the love and gratitude I felt for who she had been for me. When she finally died, my grieving was really intense but very short. In a matter of days, I felt everything great about my mother had entered into me and would live there as loving spirit forever. A year and a half before my father's death, I began to send him letters and poems all about the contribution of my life. He lived as his last month has died, and the grip of chronic illness was communicating and letting through him the personal letters and poems to read. Once he called me after I'd sent a Father's Day poem, and he said, "Hey, I guess I wasn't such a bad father after all." Poet William Blake warned us about keeping our thought locked up until we die. When thought is locked in the cave, he wrote, then love will show its root to deepest hell. Pretending you're not going to die is detrimental to your enjoyment of life. This is detrimental to the same way that it would detrimental for the basketball player. Pretend there was no end to the game that he was playing. The player would reduce his intensity, adopt the lazy playing style, and of course end up having any fun at all. Without an end, there is no game. Without being conscious of death, you can't fully aware of the gift of life. Yet many of us, including myself, keep pretending that our life is the game that we have no end. We keep planning to do great things someday when we'll feel like it. We assign our goals and dreams that imaginary Iceland to the sea that Daniel Wesley called someday else. We find ourselves saying, someday I'll do this and someday I'll do that, confronting our soul that doesn't have the weight until we run out of life. In fact, being able to vividly imagine our last hours in the deathbed creates a paradoxical sensation and the feeling of being born all over again. The first step to the fearless self-motivation. People living deeply, wrote the poet diarist Annalson, have no fear of death, and the Bob Dylan has sung, he who is not busy being born is busy dying. It's the second way of being motivated. Stay hungry. Arnold was not famous yet in 1976 when he and I had lunch together at the DoubleTree Inn in Tucson, Arizona. Not one person in the restaurant recognized him. He was in town publicizing the movie Stay Hungry, a box office disappointment has just made with the Jeff Bridges and Shelley Field. I was sports columnist and Tucson citizen at the time, and my assignment was to spend a full day one-on-one with Arnold to write a feature story about him and our newspaper Sunday magazine. I too had no idea what he was and who he was going to become. I agreed to spend the day with him because I had to do it. It was an assignment, and although I took it with an uninspired attitude, it was one I'd never forget. Perhaps the most memorable part of that day was with him awkward. When we took an hour for lunch. I had my reporter's notebook out and was asking questions for my story while I ate. At one point, I casually asked him, "Now that you have retired from bodybuilding, what are you going to do the next?" With a voice as calm as he were telling me about some, mundane travel plans, he said, "I'm going to be the number one box office star of all time in Hollywood." Mind you, this was not a slim aerobic Arnold we knew today. This man was pumped up and huge, and so for my own physical sense of well-being, I tried to appear to find his goal reasonable. I tried not to show my shock and amusement at his plan. After all, his first attempt at movies didn't promise much, and his Austrian accent and awkward monstrous belt didn't suggest instant acceptance by the movie audience. I finally managed to match his calm and demeanor, and I asked him just how he planned to become Bollywood's top star. It's the same process that I use in bodybuilding, he explained. What you do is create a vision of you, who you want to be, and then live into that picture as if it were already true. I sounded ridiculously simple. It sounded ridiculously simple, too simple to mean anything, but I wrote it down and I never forget it. I'd never forget that moment when some entertainment TV show was saying that box office Rishi from his hand Terminator movie has made him the most popular box office draw in the world. Was he a psychic, and was there something to his formula? Over the years, I've used Arnold's idea of creating a vision as a motivational tool. I've also elaborated on it to my corporate training seminars. I'll invite my people to notice that Arnold said that you create a vision. He did. And not say this, you wait until you receive a vision. You create one. In other words, you make it up. The major part of living a life of self-motivation is having something to wake up in the morning and something that you are up to in life so that you will stay hungry. The vision can be created right now. Better now than later. You can always change if you want to, but don't live at a moment that longer without one. Watch what being hungry to live that vision does to your ability to motivate yourself. Third one, tell yourself a true lie. I remember when my then 12-year-old daughter Marjorie participated in the school poetry reading, in which all of her classmates had to write a lie poem about how great they were. They were supposed to make up untruth about themselves that they made the sound unbelievably wonderful. I realized that I listened to that poem that the children were doing, the unintended version of what Arnold did clarify that picture of his future by lying themselves, and they were creating the vision of who they wanted to be. That's not worthy too. The public schools are so out of touch with the motivational sources in individual achievements and the personal success that in order to invite children to express the big vision for themselves, they have to invite children to lie. As it was said in movie E.T., how you explain school a higher intelligence? Most of us are unable to see the truth who we could be. My daughter's school developed an unintended solution to that difficulty. If that's hard for you, imagine the potential inside yourselves, and then you might want to begin by expressing as it fancy, as did the children who wrote their poems. Think of some stories about who you would like to be. Your subconscious mind doesn't know you're fantasizing, or either receives pictures or it doesn't. Soon you'll begin to create the necessary blueprints for sketching your accomplishment. Without a picture of your higher self, you can't live into the self. Fake it until you make it. The lie will become the truth. Keep your eyes on the prize. Fourth, most of us never really focus. We constantly feel a kind of irritating psychic shows because we keep trying to think of many things at once. There's always too much up there in the screen. There was an interesting motivational talk on the subject given by former Dallas Cowboy coach Jimmy Johnson to his football player before 1993 Super Bowl. I told them that if I laid 2x4 across the room, everybody there would walk across it and not fall, because our focus would be that we were going to walk to 4x4. But if I'll put that the same 2x4 in 10 stories high between two buildings, and only a few would make it, because the focus would be on the falling. Is everything. Focus is everything. The team that is more focused today is the team that will win this game. Johnson told his team not to be distracted by the crowd, the media, the possibility of losing, but the focus on each play of the game itself. Just by if it were a good practice session, the Cowboys won the game by 52-17. That's a point to do the story how that goes beyond the football. Many of us tend to lose our focus of life because we are perpetually worried about so many negative possibilities. Rather than focusing on 2x4, we are worried about all ramification of falling. Rather than focusing on our goals, we are distracted by our worries and fears. But when you focus on what you want, it will come to your life. When you focus on being happy and motivated person, that is who you will be. Fifth, learn to sweat in peace. The harder you are on yourself, the easier life is on you. Or as they say in the Navy SEALs, the more you sweat in the peacetime, the less you bleed in the war. My childhood friend Rhett Newell was the first to show me the principle of action. When we were playing little league baseball, we were always troubled by how the first pitchers threw the ball. We were in especially good league, and the overgrown opposite pitchers whose birthday certificate we were always demanded to see fired the ball into us and arming speed during the games. We got into dreading going up to the plate to hit. It wasn't fun. Batting had become something we just try to get through without embarrassing ourselves too much. The Rat got an idea. What if pitchers we faced in the game were slower than the ones we faced in every day in practice? Rat said. That's just a problem, I said. I don't know anybody who can pitch that fast into us. That's why in the game it's so hard. The ball looks like an aspirin pill coming out to the 200 miles an hour. We don't know anyone who can throw a baseball that fast, said Rennie. But what if it wasn't a baseball? I don't know what you mean, I said. Just then the Ripple pulled his pocket a little plastic gold box and rolled it. The character that